Welcome to the Ascend Growth AI podcast, where we make smart growth moves with a little AI magic. I'm Teresa. Let's dive in. For today's guest, we have Matt Schiumo, a Mathnasium franchise owner in Hoboken, New Jersey. So, Matt, thank you so much for being here today.
Excited to chat with you, Teresa. Looking forward to it.
Me too. How about you start by sharing your journey with us?
Sure. So it's been quite the journey, to say the least. Definitely led by passion. A lot of things that kind of led me to where I am today. It started all in high school. Was a varsity athlete, played football and wrestled, and that was kind of my bread and butter. It was not much of an academic. However, when I turned 18, my father told me, he goes, "Well, you got to make a decision." He goes, "You're 18 now. It's time to make a decision." He goes, "You're either going to go to engineering school or you're going to get out." And I said, "Whoa, what are we talking about?" I thought I was going to play sports in college. I never knew engineering. It's not for me. My high school math teacher had told me to focus on football because math was not for me. Struggled with my academics, and sure enough, I find myself enrolled in a county college for engineering, where I went on to fail my freshman year. My father told me I wasn't taking it serious and that he was going to basically stop helping me and I was going to be on my own. I asked him for one last chance to prove it to him, and I signed up for a calculus course over the summer, an accelerated course, which was only 5 weeks long, which I failed the first 3 of 5 tests and was desperately looking for help. I stumbled into a tutoring center and I walked into a man that changed my life. That's where the story changed. There was a man in there. His name was Dr. Cartano. He was a Filipino guy, and he waved me over and said, "Hey, come sit with me." And he goes, "Let me make this stuff easy for you." And I go, "I don't think it's going to be easy for me." I said, "I've been struggling for quite some time with this, and I haven't been able to pass a test yet." And he goes, "Well, what are you working on?" I said, "Calculus." He goes, "I can make that easy for you." And he was so positive and so excited that he could help me. And before you know it, by the end of the first hour, I was starting to nod along, and some of the stuff started making sense.
Wow.
And he said, "If you're free tomorrow, why don't you come back? I'll be here." And I said, "Okay, great." And sure enough, I showed up and he was there and we worked together again. And he said the same thing at the end of the second session. And on day 3, he looked at me, he goes, "Matt, you're not just going to be an engineer, you're going to be a good engineer." And those were the words I clung to. I went from failing terribly to I ended up graduating with a 4.0 in electrical engineering from NJIT, which is one of the top programs in the country. I worked directly with Dr. Cartano. And as our time went on, I got to know a little bit more about who he was. It turned out that he was actually one of the lead inventors of the Motorola Razr cell phone. He had made buku bucks and made more money than he knew what to do with. And he had decided that he was going to dedicate the rest of his life to future engineers. And when I asked him, "Why are you at a county college? You have an Ivy League degree and you have a PhD in electrical engineering. Why are you here?" He looked at me and goes, "Because I get to meet people like you. You're a project." He goes, "Everybody I went to UPenn with, they had private tutors and chauffeurs and they had everything else under the sun that could help them." He goes, "But you," he goes, "you really need the help." And we laughed about it, but ultimately he was right. And he really became an inspirational figure in my life. He was someone that I would confide in, someone that I would go to, someone that I would come to for career advice, for educational advice. Every really big obstacle or roadblock in my life, Dr. Cartano stood in my corner. I went on to build a career in Manhattan. I was the lead MEP engineer on a large high-rise project going up on the corner of 5th Ave and 28th Street. That's where I got a phone call. I got a phone call from a classmate of mine, and he said, "Matt, take a seat." And I said, "What happened?" And he goes, "I have bad news." And I said, "Sure." He goes, "Dr. Cartano didn't make it through the night." Dr. Cartano was a young man. He was 47 years old. He had a 9-year-old son named Rocco at home and a loving wife, and went into the hospital with chest pains and never made it out. That was kind of a moment when I realized there was more to the world than just making money. I was in a very good career boat. I had a nice trajectory ahead of me. I was making an impact. I had a good name forming. And I felt like what I had was the world was my oyster. I felt like I was really hitting my stride. And I got the phone call that kind of changed everything. I immediately knew that I wanted to do something different. I knew that I wasn't sitting in an office designing buildings, wasn't going to be the thing that fulfilled me. And I wanted to find a way to make a difference for people the same way Dr. Cartano did for me, which led me to go down a rabbit hole of maybe I'll be a professor, maybe I'll be a teacher, maybe I'll work at a college. And then it turned out that one of my closest friends from high school had moved out to San Francisco and had opened this Mathnasium thing. And when I started telling him that I wanted a career shift, he was the first person to say, "Come fly out, come see what it's all about. You're going to love it." And he had been in my ear for a while, and I finally made the decision. I took a week of vacation from work. I flew out, and I spent a week working with him in his Mathnasium center, and I realized that it was not just some after-school learning center, that you really, truly were making a difference in children's lives. I also realized that there was some significant earning opportunities, and I realized, like, okay, this is a new potential for me. Less than 2 years later, I opened the Cartano Way, doing business as Mathnasium of Hoboken. That was May of 2023. I just got back 2 weeks ago from Seattle, a Mathnasium conference, international conference. We were recognized as the #1 rising star franchise in the entire organization. We have broken multiple records in student enrollment and revenue. We've done things that no one's ever heard of, and we're now actually partnering with different school districts and charitable organizations, putting over 100 students through our program this past school year fully on scholarships. So we are truly living the Cartano way every single day. We're making a difference, and it's been one of the best journeys I've ever been on. So that's my story from start to finish.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. And I mean, you just needed that one person to believe in you, and it changed your whole life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. And you said it's not just after school tutoring, right? It really changes people's lives. Can you explain what Mathnasium does to do that?
Yeah, totally. So I think the #1 thing that separates Mathnasium from a typical classroom experience is what happens is we meet every student and we meet them where they are. And what does that mean? We do an assessment and we look to understand where is their current understanding. If they're in 5th grade, does that mean that they need to be a master of 5th grade? Not necessarily. Maybe they're ahead. Maybe they're behind. Maybe they're still having problems with multiplication, division. Maybe they're still having problems with addition and subtraction. And to be honest, that's what Mathnasium does very well, is a thorough assessment where we then meet that child with a learning plan custom fit for them. That's what I would say really separates our program from others, is that every student is treated as an individual instead of as a number. Every child gets a personalized, tailored learning plan that fits their needs based on that thorough assessment process. And therefore, we can meet them where they are and take them further. Along the way, they're greeted each day from a human at the front door. We're not an AI or we're not a software-led company. We are a human interface. So we do definitely have plenty of technology in the background. And as a great mentor told me, he goes, let the AI do that so we can focus on the HI, and the HI is the human intelligence. And we definitely have quite a bit of software functioning behind the scenes, but it allows for us to really pull forward the human interface and human experience and let each child be met by an instructor with a smile on their face and excited to work with them, knowing exactly their needs from the beginning of the session to the end of the session, building rapport, building relationship. And I think that's truly what separates Mathnasium apart from your standard classroom experience.
That's really nice. Is there a lot of competition though with like tutors, and there's other brands out there that also do that? How do you guys stand out?
Yeah, totally. I think without question, there's a bunch. Just in our area alone, 3 blocks away, we have a company called Alpha Minds, and they do a very similar program. They're an independent learning center, not a franchise, but they are competition that's only a few blocks away. More commonly known, Kumon, we have those 5 blocks away as well. And we also have Russian School of Math, just a train ride away. Do I look at them as competition? Absolutely not. However, I think other franchise owners probably do. The reason I don't see it as competition is we've taken a much larger approach to the business, right? We're not just a business that operates from Monday through Friday. We are involved in the community in many different ways. We partner directly with the school districts. We're offering scholarship opportunities. We're creating events throughout the community for people to attend. We participate in other community events. We sponsor charities. We sponsor the local police department. We sponsor the public school districts. We sponsor the charter school districts. So for me, I'm not really intimidated by any of the other franchises or learning centers in our area, because I feel that we set ourselves apart and we stand on our own. I think we stand alone and we stand strong. I have not found it to be a competitive market. However, I do believe that it truly is.
That's good. I guess everything that you just described, that's how you got to over 100 students.
Yeah, so we peaked at 320 students this past February. The average Mathnasium has about 80 students enrolled, and in less than 2 years, we reached 320.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's amazing. And it's because of all the community aspects, you think?
100%. Yeah, I credit more than anything else, I credit our team and our community. We lead from the front. We're involved in as many different community activities and engagements as possible. And we also look to do good business. And what I mean by that is there's plenty of people, I've heard other franchise owners mention, just because you didn't use the program doesn't mean you get a refund. Do you get a refund if you don't watch Netflix from Netflix? No, you still pay the bill. And I've taken a very different approach. If you haven't used the program, I'm happy to issue a refund. If you're not seeing the value, I'm happy to let you go. Just because you signed a contract doesn't mean that there's no other way out. I'm a firm believer that if you treat people right and you do a good service, people will come and use your business. And we've taken a huge approach of being a customer first in every decision that we make. So if it means that we forfeit some business, but we ultimately continue to build a strong reputation, then I'm willing to do that. And that's something that we've done from day one, and I plan to continue doing throughout my career.
I mean, it's working. Congratulations. That's amazing. What about data? Like most business owners fly blind. What kind of data would give them confidence, or what data has given you confidence to scale?
Totally. So I think for starters was like doing our true territory and demographic research. It was learning how many children were truly within proximity of our location, how many people were at the appropriate age, what we would consider a wage able to afford a program like ours, right? Having the combined household income of X versus Y, looking for how many people have the appropriate combined income to afford a program like ours. We've also looked at some racial demographics. We found that a higher Asian population across the globe has led to a stronger Mathnasium portfolio. We've been able to do a deep dive into the study of what creates a higher performing location. And what we've found, some of the simple numbers were over $150,000 household income, a 12% or higher Asian influence. We found that communities that have a higher amount of married couples than divorced couples also creates a better family or recipe for a Mathnasium family. And we've also found that we're looking for territories that have between 3,000 and 5,000 children at the eligible age to attend a program like ours. So that's just some simple data that we used to get started. We collected that data using software like niche.com and some census records and some deep dives into Google, but definitely was able to collect that information. And nowadays, much simpler. Typically, we're looking at revenue numbers each month. How many customers do we have actively attending? How many customers are on hold? How many people have terminated? What is our termination rate? What is our attrition rate? Looking at things like that, looking at how much money we're spending on advertising, looking at how much we're spending on marketing. So at this point in the game, I think the majority of our data is financial data, and it's how we can make decisions on hiring, firing, additional marketing, additional events, additional charitable efforts. So those are some of the things that we're using that data to make decisions on. Currently under contract to buy 2 more locations. So went back into that same deep dive of the territory analysis, looking to see if the demographics of what we consider a winning territory consist of. And that was definitely data that I dove deeply back into before making the decision to proceed. And at this point, doing a deep dive into the current owners' profit and loss statements, seeing the months that they've done well, months that they haven't, trying to recognize patterns so that way we can get ahead of that moving into the future.
And so you're looking at buying existing methods.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Currently under contract for 2 more.
Oh, well, congratulations. After 2 years, you're going to go into 3. That's really nice growth.
It should be good, God willing.
Yes. You kind of answered this question. I was going to ask what's working well for you right now. You talked about a whole host of things. On the flip side, what's been frustrating?
To be honest with you, I haven't really had too many frustrations. It's really the whole thing from start to where we are now has felt truly like a blessing. A lot of things I feel like have come into our favor. I will say some of the things that I find limiting, being part of a franchise, there's definitely some limiting factors. You have to operate within the box, and I'm not someone that loves that. I think that's one of the few things that I do struggle with is being someone to operate within the box. So I have had some obstacles. However, I'm lucky enough to be part of a franchise that's relatively understanding, and I think due to our strong performance, they've been able to help me overcome some obstacles that maybe I wouldn't have been able to overcome had I not had a strong performance from the beginning. So I think being part of a franchise that's open-minded and eager to learn and adapt and grow, I think is really important. However, without a question, there's definitely been some limitations on some of the things that I would like to do. And I think that's also part of it. I'm still thankful to be part of the franchise. The branding, the marketing, the recognition has all been a huge token to why we've been successful.
Do you find that there's a lot of competition with other activities, right? Like after school activities? How do you navigate through that?
Yeah, I mean, that's without question. That's probably our largest obstacle is how busy these children are. I say it all the time, like I think these kids are busier than me and feel like I live a pretty busy life. And these kids are doing more and more and more each year, especially in where I live in Hoboken, which is right outside Manhattan. And we have competitive parents raising competitive children. I say it all the time. So we have people that are working in high-level roles in Manhattan, earning large salaries and hopefully looking to take their children to the next level as well. So we see children that are involved in multiple sports and piano and another language class, so on and so forth. I will say, I think we're lucky. I think for the most part, there's a common thread that math is important. And I think we've been able to create that message. And I think that message is well received within our community. So we definitely have had families that have told us, oh, the academics are more important than the athletics. And they've either pulled their child out of one sport or have found time. How have we combated that? We're open 6 days a week. We're only closed 1 day a week. So we've really tried to stretch ourselves to make ourselves available for as many families as possible. Also, when we were initially creating our schedule of when we were going to operate, we pooled the neighborhood and we would take vote from random people walking throughout the town that had children and say, if the Mathnasium was here, what day would you attend? And we would just take votes. And pretty shortly, we realized that there were certain days that were more feasible for these families. And that's kind of how we made the decisions we made when it came to actually selecting the days that we'd be open. And then as we grew, we opened with 5 days a week availability. And as we grew and as the program got stronger, the demand was there for a 6th day, and we answered the demand. And we've been open 6 days now for about 18 months. So.
Okay, I can imagine with 300 students, you need to have 6 days a week. And where do you want to be 6 to 12 months from now? I'm assuming the other two franchises are open, but anything else?
Yeah, so without question, I want to be in a stable position with all 3 locations running strong and hopefully all in the green. I do think that will be the case. And then from there, continuing to develop, continuing to grow, building relationships both within my own company and with others, potentially with my eyes on the horizon for more opportunities to expand, depending on how things go. But without question, the main focus will be right here on these 3 locations.
Do you think your same strategies will work in the other 2 locations the way they worked in Hoboken?
Yes, I do. I really do believe that the connection is the key. Being connected, being part of the community, being actively engaged, giving back, giving time, creating events, creating a space that people want to be at. I think no matter where you live, I think that's a great approach when you have a family first business. I say it all the time to my management team. We're asking people to trust us with the 2 most important things in life, their money and their children. So if that's what's at stake, then we need to be focused on what matters. And that's being a family first business that's focused on creating a white glove service and treating families as a top priority.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in order for you to go to 3 locations, you have to hire a good team. Like, how do you find good talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's kind of perfectly timed because we had a few rounds of interviews this morning. So I think without question, something that I've always appreciated, especially in companies that I worked at previously to getting into my own business, was companies that hired from within. So that was something that I always admired, something that I always wanted to adopt, and it's something I have adopted. So for the most part, majority of my hires or promotions are from within, and it's something that I take great pride in. These are the people that have committed to me day in and day out for months and months, if not years. And I think that they are the first person that deserves the opportunity. So although we have a few hires from outside of the network, my goal is to continue hiring from within. I will admit, I think I've been very blessed and very lucky with the people that I've found. I have yet to have a leadership role who really wasn't fit for the role. We've been unbelievably lucky with the people we've had. They've continued to rise to the occasion. They've continued to step up. They've continued to answer the call. So I really can say that I'm truly, truly blessed with the people on my team. They really are the business. At this point, they are running, for the most part, they run autonomously. I still show up a few times a week, but I don't need to. And I have full trust in them that they can do their job to the fullest degree. How is that possible? I think we've had very good training protocols. I think my management style, I've never been one to micromanage. I constantly look to give opportunity. And I think ultimately one of the things I've learned from my previous bosses was to trust but verify. Offer someone the opportunity to do something, but then verify that it was done correctly. And when something was done wrong, it was never an opportunity to be angry or upset. It was always an opportunity to teach and for them to learn. So typically when I see something done wrong, I'm never jumping to anger. I'm quickly jumping to a more inquisitive approach, asking, how did this happen? Why did it happen this way? What could you have done better? Do you see this as a mistake? Do you see this as is this something that you're proud of? And we pretty quickly can remedy the solution together as opposed to me just bringing down the hammer. And I've had bosses that have done both approaches, and I know the ones that I've worked much better for. I think you can always get more with honey. A sweeter approach is definitely a safer approach. It breeds creativity when they feel like they have room to innovate, they have room to create, they have room to kind of take things into their own hands, knowing that even if they make a mistake, they're not going to be yelled at for it. We'll just correct the behavior or we'll correct the situation at hand. So that's definitely something that I think I'm, number one, very blessed with a good team. And number two, I think we have really good training and development.
Yeah, the two combined seems like a recipe for success. What would you tell your younger self to do differently if you were to start over again?
Trust myself. I think trust myself. There was so much worry and nerves and sleepless nights when I was planning on doing this, and I was terrified, and how am I going to pay the rent, and how am I going to pay the people, and what if I don't get enough enrollments? And I was just so utterly scared of taking the risk. And what I realize now is that the real risk was to stay employed and never follow my dreams and never carry forward something amazing message that I was blessed to receive. And I think if I could do one thing differently, it would have been to just trust, to trust in myself, to trust in the franchise that I had selected, to trust in the people that would come across my door. I think if I could have done one thing differently, it would have just been to trust the process more instead of all these sleepless nights and fear getting into it. I think for those that believe that they have what it takes, that's probably all you need. You just need to believe it, and the rest will kind of unravel.
That's great advice. And I'm sure you had the golden handcuffs at one point. So it was hard to leave that stable job, but you had a big why.
Absolutely. My previous boss had told me, he goes, "You're nuts." He said, "I can't believe that you're leaving." He goes, "You should think this through." And then when I finally told him, I gave him like my final notice that, hey, I've made my decision, he ghosted me for the last 2 weeks. My boss did not say goodbye to me. He did not talk to me. He walked past my office for 2 weeks straight, refusing to recognize that I even existed. It resulted in Friday, one of the ladies in my office totally lost it and went to his office and screamed at him publicly, saying, like, how can you treat someone like this who's done as much as Matt has done, and you don't even have it in you to say goodbye? And it resulted in me getting a phone call like Friday afternoon, late afternoon, from him saying, "Good luck in your endeavors. I see your decisions made." And I realized, like, that was a moment when I realized that people, they care while you're providing for them. But as soon as you step away or you're not of service to them anymore, you're no good. And it made me realize too, like, how little security I really had in that role. As long as I was producing, I was treated like gold. But as soon as I was willing to step away, I was as good as dead. And I realized pretty quickly through that experience that the security of a job is really not that secure. And what I've learned is by building a business, even if my business started to take a downturn, I can still sell it. If it came to retirement, more likely than not, I'll be able to sell it for a profit. So I see it now very differently. I think the fears I had of business ownership have quickly been extinguished by the blessings of business ownership. And I've now realized that the autonomy, the freedom, the ability to think freely, the ability to make my own schedule, work on what I think is important, trumps any security that I had in a corporate role, because the security was never there at all. I was laid off from one role. I was working on a project in Manhattan. I was laid off 3 weeks after I laid my father to rest. I realized pretty quickly it didn't matter where you were in life. It didn't matter what circumstance you were under. It didn't matter what was happening or what you needed. Sorry, we're out of work. See ya. And it didn't matter. I had only been back to work 2 weeks since coming off leave from my father's burial. So between that and then my last boss not even talking to me as I left the company, I quickly realized that you're only as good as what you can produce. And if you can't produce, you're no good. And I really don't believe that there is as much security in a corporate role as I think they make it out to be. And I found that I feel much more secure owning my own business and controlling my own destiny to some extent.
That's a really inspiring story for people who are thinking about making the jump, right? Because I think a lot of people do get stuck because it's stable. I mean, well, stable and comfortable. So it's really inspiring. And if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn is probably easiest. Matthew Schiumo is my profile. On Instagram, Hoboken Mathnasium is my Instagram profile. So you can definitely find us there if you're interested in anything going on with us. And then my LinkedIn is an easy way where you can shoot me a message and I'd be happy to take a call.
Okay. Well, Matt, thank you so much. I'm so inspired. Like when I think about the success of a franchisee, you're living it, which is really nice. It's not just theory. So I'm very inspired and hope my journey ends up being like yours. So thank you so much for sharing.
I hope the same. I really appreciate you having me on and a lot of thoughtful questions that you asked tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you got value, share it, tag us, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Catch you next time on the Ascend Growth AI podcast.